We're talking about CM Punk main eventing WrestleMania potentially. CM Punk, if you go back to WrestleMania 27, leading up to that was, I think, the top heel. The Miz was the WWE champion, obviously had a matchup against John Cena for the WWE title in the main event, and it wasn't really deemed a main event because The Rock's involvement elevated it, but no one looked at The Miz as a legitimate threat. If you ask me, CM Punk versus John Cena should have been the main event at WrestleMania 27. CM Punk was the main heel, the leader of the new Nexus. CM Punk was already feuding with John Cena. Why not cap it off with the number one heel versus the number one baby face at the number one show? But they don't do that. So Punk doesn't get his main event in 2011. 2012, he's a WWE champion. He's the main guy, the top guy, the guy holding the strap that everyone is fighting for. But it just happened to be the same year that The Rock decides to come back from Hollywood and face John Cena. So naturally, that's going to be the main event. So Punk gets ousted again. Fast forward to 2013. The Undertaker versus CM Punk is a marquee matchup. I would absolutely love to see that matchup in a main event. But again, it happened to be CM Punk against The Undertaker on the undercard to who? John Cena and The Rock, part 2. They lied. They said once in a lifetime. They said, here goes another one. They lied to us. It's been documented in the Art of Wrestling podcast between CM Punk and Colt Cabana. He wasn't a fan of that. Again, CM Punk was the hottest star in the company from 2011 to 2013. Arguably 2014, but Daniel Bryan kind of got in the middle of that. CM Punk makes a suggestion. Why not have it be a triple threat match, right? Cena, Punk, Rock. Elimination style. Have Punk walk in as the champion. Punk gets the first pinfall to be eliminated. Now you have your one-on-one matchup between Rock and Cena while also having a little bit of freshness to it. It's not a straight-up one-on-one contest and a rip-off of the last year. You add CM Punk into the wrinkle, who had his beef with both individuals, and make it fresh. But no, they didn't do that either. And then WrestleMania 30 in 2014, the WrestleMania where Daniel Bryan elevates himself to superstardom. Punk was not in attendance. Punk was not on the card because obviously he walked out. Then at WrestleMania 40, makes his huge return, but gets injured, doesn't make it. WrestleMania 41. This is it. This is it. He has to main event night one. Whether it's against Gunther, whether it's against Roman, whether it's against Seth. You know how bad it's going to be if Punk doesn't main event another Mania. He doesn't have that much time left. They got to make use of it now. Let's look at the chat here real quick. Kevin says Punk versus Rollin is this day's Shawn versus Brett. I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. One made the argument that maybe that was McIntyre versus Punk. But I think Punk versus Rollins, just because these two are similar in their style. Shawn and Brett had their similarities, but also their differences. But there was that real life heat. Love the comparison. Shawn versus Brett, probably my all-time favorite rivalry. We've done a video in the past where I talk about my favorite rivalries of all time. Make sure you check that on the archives to see my other favorites on the list. But Punk versus Rollins, excellent comparison there by Kevin. He also says CM Punk deserved a WrestleMania main event. Absolutely. At least one. Should have had one by now. CM Punk versus Undertaker was fire. Absolutely. It was one of my favorite Undertaker matches, especially in the latter years of the streak. CM Punk and Cena had an amazing match on Raw once. That was right. It was in February of 2013 to crown the number one contender to see who would face The Rock at WrestleMania 29. They also busted out a pile driver, if you remember that. What's going on, Muhammad? Welcome to the live stream. Appreciate you stopping by. You're talking about wrestling here on a Monday Night Raw edition of a live stream. And now Kevin asks, love these questions by Kevin, by the way. Who do you think has the better career, Seth or Punk? Keep in mind, Rollins has had the best heist of the century, Money in the Bank steal. I agree. I mean, it is probably the best cash-in of all time. I think that... Sorry, I just skipped ahead to Kevin's comment about seeing Cena bust out the Hurricane Rana. It's crazy. When he was doing that and like the code red and then like a stunner, a springboard stunner, Cena was in his bag in that time. To see the versatility, people were chanting, "You can't wrestle," and Cena said, "Hold on, I got you." Love it. It was awesome. Muhammad, wishing the best. Appreciate you. Likewise as well, my friend. But to answer Kevin's question, overall, Seth versus Punk, who had the better career? I'm going to go Punk here. I look at Impact. I think Seth has done everything. WWE champion, world champion, mid-card titles, tag titles, main event WrestleMania. But CM Punk on a grand scheme of things, right? He kind of paved the way for a guy like Seth Rollins. CM Punk really paved the way for a lot of these indie guys. You know, there was a time where CM Punk was the outlier. He was the reject. He wasn't seen as the typical WWE star. He had to carve out his own position in the WWE to the point where it worked against him. He was seen as the top indie darling in Ring of Honor. So where Paul Heyman was pushing for him, that it kind of got heat on Punk because of Paul Heyman's reputation. But with all that being said, being stuck on ECW, being given the world championship and playing second fiddle to all these other storylines, never losing the world title in 2008 because they had to strip him of that title due to a Randy Orton punt. Getting back into the mid card, reestablishing himself as a main star, as a heel with the Straight Edge Society, and then organically getting over with the pipe bomb, becoming the longest reigning WWE champion in modern history up until that point, of course. He became a martyr. He became a symbol of what it was to be kind of like a contrarian to the WWE style. Without a guy like CM Punk, who's to say a guy like AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, kind of get over in the WWE? I won't give him 100% of the credit, but I do think a guy like Punk and Bryan for sure paved the way for like the current run of the WWE. I think his legacy as well, that 10-year period where he wasn't with the WWE, fans were still chanting his name. He was still omnipresent. He became a ghost, a ghost story. Who's this CM Punk guy? Because if you remember, he was gone for 10 years. Who's to say there wasn't those fans who were like kids growing up and like, who's CM Punk? They keep chanting CM Punk. Who is this guy? And he finally makes the return. Not one, but two huge returns. Obviously, one in AEW, one in WWE. Again, not to say that Seth Rollins hasn't had a better career or hasn't had a great career. I think he has. But I think when you look at the grand scheme and you take a step back, I think Punk. Sanfran 5 says, who would cut a better promo, Punk or LA Knight? But good question. I feel like they're two different promos. LA Knight delivers that old school, kind of like a 90s vibe. Obviously, the comparisons with The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin are there. LA Knight delivers this great kind of egotistical, confident promo. The guy that can talk smack and back it up. He's like an old school 90s and Rock and Austin. Punk is like his own style. I would like to think he models himself after Roddy Piper. Punk's promos come off so naturally. LA Knight's is a wrestling promo. He has the high energy. He has, the pointing, and he's just old school, and we love it. But when Punk speaks, it feels like he's just talking with us. It doesn't feel like a promo. It just feels like it's coming off so effortlessly. If you ask me who's the better promo, I say Punk. Punk style, for me, is what I look forward to because it's relatable. It's real. Who's more entertaining? Probably LA Knight, depending on who you ask. But I think just CM Punk's style and his approach, it's not like, okay, I'm playing a character and what would my character say in a promo? It's CM Punk saying, well, this is how I feel. So I'm just going to say it. Solid question there by Sanfran5. Kevin says it's funny because at first glance, I thought Punk was a high flyer type of wrestler, like a Justin Gabriel because of his physique. However, his in-ring talent is incredible. I've always looked at Punk as like a technician. I wouldn't say necessarily as like a high flyer. He's had instances where he can hit a cross body. Obviously, the CM and CM Punk can mean a lot of things. It obviously means chick magnet, but he's joked that it's crooked moonsault. So maybe not a high flyer, but he can throw in a little bit in his repertoire, if you will. But and the thing with Punk too is he's able to wrestle so many different styles. Technician, somewhat of a high flyer, submission on occasion, a brawler, and he really matches up with a lot of guys. Great matches against Rey Mysterio, who was smaller than him, guys who are similar in his size, like a trying to think, he's had matches with everybody at this point. Jeff Hardy, great matches with him, who's a high flyer, a brawler, kind of like a bruiser brawler with like a Drew McIntyre. And we've seen him have great matches against giants like Brock Lesnar. He meshes well with a lot of styles. Punk is just like a Shawn or Brett, I was gonna say Brett Michaels, like a Shawn Michaels or a Bret Hart, where they're just so complementary with their style. Everybody wants to work with them because he can work with anybody.